Welcome back to No Fall Weddings, Week 11 edition. Please do me a favor, hit that like, comment, and subscribe for me. We are part of the Co-working Universe. Check out all our stuff that we drop during the week, talking football, talking music, talking movies, all the good stuff. But they called Week 11 Separation Saturday, and that mostly lived up to the hype. Plus, you sprinkle in a little top 5 upset that nobody's actually truly surprised about, and it was a good Saturday. But I'm going to start with Lane Kiffin, who is a guy that I actually really like personally. He's great on interviews. He tells it like it is. He doesn't shy away from his hatred of Alabama and other SEC teams. But I've never been able to respect him as a coach because every year, they're always a fringe top 10 team with Ole Miss. And they lose to a team they shouldn't have. And then again, they creep back up. And then they have that one big game against the SEC elite, whether it's Bama, Georgia, Florida, whoever's that year who's really good. And then they get smoked every time. So again, they already have one loss that they got upset by earlier this year. They're playing Georgia yesterday, number 3 ranked team in the country, at home. I saw that Georgia was only 2-point underdogs. And again, this is why I don't bet, because I would have laid the house on Georgia. Ole Miss comes out with a resounding win in the rain. You know, Lane Kiffin teams are known for their offense, especially with Jackson Dart at quarterback, but they held Georgia to 245 total yards, 59 rushing yards on 33 attempts. Dart was efficient throwing and running, only had 1 turnover, but other than that, kind of controlled the clock, controlled the game, and let their defense do the talking. So that definitely shakes up the SEC now, with Georgia having their second loss, Ole Miss only having 1. Start looking at those standings with 3 weeks to go. It's anybody's ball game who's going to make that SEC championship game. Speaking of that conference, we go to the unofficial SEC rivalry, Alabama versus LSU. But think about it. Is it actually a rivalry? It kind of reminds me of the Penn State-Ohio State Big Ten rivalry that they like to talk about. Don't get me wrong. If you look at both those matchups, there's classic games, obviously classic venues, a whole lot of NFL players. But when only one team wins, is it really a rivalry? And after last night, that word rivalry is looking like more of a joke. Bama 42, LSU 13 in Baton Rouge at night. That makes it 12 out of 14 for Bama against them. Not much of a rivalry. This was dubbed the first playoff eliminator, at least for the SEC this year. Goodbye, Brian Kelly. That was just an embarrassing effort on their part. Bama looked tougher. They looked faster. They looked more prepared. Basically goes along the path with all Brian Kelly big-time games. Jalen Milroe. I mean, it's just amazing how 2-3 times a year he will put up a game where you're like, oh, he's the best player in college football. And last night was one of them. 185 yards on 12 carries for 4 touchdowns. Now, just a reminder for anyone who's not really up on college football, he's the quarterback. Last year against LSU, he ran for 155 yards and 4 touchdowns. Tigers fans, you sick of him? So yet again, every time we're this close to burying Alabama and their dynasty, they show up, and now I believe if they win out, yeah, they will sneak into the playoff, because there's no way the CFP is going to let Bama just play in some meaningless bowl game. But now we move to that upset that I talked about earlier. The U. They've been playing with fire all year. 3 times they were down double digits in the second half, and Cam Ward would do his thing. So now we had the 4th attempt yesterday at Georgia Tech. Couldn't do it this time, even though I thought for a second it was going to happen. I even texted my buddy who's a Miami fan. I'm like, you can't keep getting away with this. Miami was down 12 with like 6 minutes to go. And of course, they score a touchdown within 2 minutes. Get the stop on defense. So they have the ball with 2 minutes to go and 2 timeouts. And I just expected Cam Ward to put on his cape and have another Heisman moment. Go down the field, take the lead. But Georgia Tech's defense got the sack, strip, fumble, ended the game, ended Miami's unbeaten season. And all of a sudden, look at the ACC standings, and they're sitting 3rd. So winning out is not going to be automatic if they even make the ACC championship. I don't think anyone really thought that Miami was a top 4 team. But when you did have the Heisman favorite and you were undefeated, I don't blame them for being ranked where they were. But it was only a matter of time before they were going to take an L and get exposed. They've made good progress through Mario Cristobal's third season, but it's going to be interesting next year without Cam Ward saving their ass week in, week out. What's going to happen? Are they going to go back to losing 4 or 5 games? Or are they going to keep recruiting, get the right quarterback again, and try to maintain what they've built this year? All right, let's go back to the Alabama game for the play of the day. This was Jalen Milroe's 72-yard touchdown that basically ended the game. It's nothing spectacular. It's a great run for a quarterback again, and he really busts his ass on this one. But it's for what happened after. I want you to look for the quick interaction between the head coach, Brian Kelly, and what I suppose is the defensive coordinator for that team.
This look, and now Miller motions out. Milroe just takes off. Guess what? Quarterback run. Jalen Milroe to sprint. Number 4 with his 4th rushing touchdown. 72 yards. A dagger to the Tigers' hopes.
I mean, he was looking through his soul at that moment. And whatever the coordinator was trying to explain, I hope it kept his job. Because Kelly looked like he could have thrown him out of the stadium. It's like, what did we practice all week? Don't let him get loose. And he's got 700 yards on us. All right, let's run through some quick hits for the rest of the Saturday slate. Top of the Big Ten took care of business. Oregon went to Maryland, got a good W. Ohio State looked very impressive against a bad Purdue team, but I'll take it. BYU saved their undefeated season in the middle of the night, kicking a game-winning field goal with basically no time left. Colorado is 7-2, and they will be favored their next 3 games, which is the rest of the season. So the Big 12 is going to get interesting. All those Colorado haters, which I was one of them at one point. Again, I know they're not beating anybody spectacular, but got to give them props. Texas welcomed Florida into the Longhorn State and just stomped them out 49-17. And it was the same week that Florida's athletic director gave like a sign of encouragement and like, hey, we're not going to get rid of Billy Napier. And the first time I looked at the score, it was 35-0. Are you regretting that one? Indiana football goes to 10-0, their first 10-win season ever. And how did they do it? By beating Michigan. Thank you. Michigan is now 5-5. If anyone's just listening to this, I think they can see the smile on my face. It's pretty damn obvious. Our weekly Florida State update. Let's check and see how they oh, nope. 1-9. And how did that happen? My Fighting Irish. 52-3. And it wasn't as close as the score indicated. All right, let's do a little preview for next week's games. Yeah, and everything's going to get a little more interesting now that the College Football Playoff Committee has their rankings. So I fully expect Oregon to be 1, Ohio State 2, Texas to move up to 3. It'll be interesting with Penn State and Indiana. Again, Penn State coming off the loss to Ohio State last week. You know, they looked like they rebounded against Washington. Pretty easy, dominant win in the whiteout game. But, you know, Miami's going to drop. Georgia's going to drop. Tennessee's going to move up a little bit. It's going to start being a little fight for the rest of the playoff spots. And again, everyone complained that moving to 12 would hinder the regular season. I know I've gone back and forth on this, but now this is where it happens. This is where so many teams are still alive for these playoff spots, which means every single game still counts. The way I look at next week is it's just avoiding upset weekend. It's Oregon at Wisconsin. It's Ohio State at Wrigley Field playing Northwestern. It's Texas at Arkansas. Again, games that all these teams should win, but you got to avoid the dreaded upset, especially with big games coming up in the next 2 weeks. Now, the one potential playoff eliminator is Tennessee at Georgia. Georgia coming off a bad loss this weekend, coming home, waiting for Tennessee, who still only has 1 loss. I saw their starting quarterback got hurt. Their backup played pretty well. Tennessee could really solidify themselves as the top of the SEC with a win. You go into Georgia, beat them, and you're pretty much smooth sailing to the SEC championship. But if they lose, again, that just muddles the SEC up a little more. And who doesn't want that? We all love chaos. Thanks for watching No Fall Weddings. That was the Week 11 edition. Again, please like, comment, subscribe anywhere you can on the Co-Working It podcast and the Co-Working It universe. We'll see y'all next week. OH, we are indeed.